Hi everyone, welcome to my show, From Stuck to Unstoppable, how divorce can be the catalyst for the most extraordinary chapter in your life. Learn how 21 mindset experts can help you shift, thrive, and create the life of your dreams. Now, this is not limited only to women who are experiencing divorce or separation. This is for any woman who is finding themselves in a transition in their life, whether it be an empty nesting or career shift or navigating parts of their career that they hadn't anticipated, relationships. Gosh, there's a myriad of things that one could be in transition with. It could simply be that you've woken up one morning and realized that this is not exactly the life that you had in mind. That's very real, and I feel like that's happening a lot these days. So this show and summit is for you. I have curated a handful of wonderful mindset specialists, casting a wide net of expertise from health, wealth, marriage, divorce, relationships, financial, grief, all sorts of things that will help you navigate your way into living the best version of yourself in your life. So stay tuned as we trickle out 21 experts over the next 21 days to help inspire and empower and help you realize that everything you need is exactly inside of you where it's always been. So join me on this little adventure, and I look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much. It is my pleasure to introduce Mardi Winder-Adams, who is a divorce coach and a podcaster and an author. Her book is called From I Do to I'm Done, aptly put. Her podcast is called The D Shift, and that is a wealth of information, interviewing lots of different people on all realms of divorce and change in transformation and transition. So that is a great spot to land if you're looking and poking around to try and find some info on different ways to approach coaching or support or help in this field. So I will put the floor over to Mardi and have her introduce herself and give her an opportunity to give us a little backstory on who she is and how she came to become a divorce coach, mindset leader, and how she is where she is.
Well, Christina, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to be on your event and to have a chance to speak with your amazing audience. Thank you for that. And actually, I think you did a really nice job introducing me. I am a divorce coach. I'm also a certified high conflict divorce coach. So I do tend to work with clients who are dealing with, I like to call them the difficult partners or the toxic partners. My background, I don't think anybody ever, as a little girl, sits around and says, I'd really like to be a divorce coach and grow up. It's just, first of all, that position didn't even exist until about 10 years ago. So I started out, I always wanted to be a veterinarian, and that's going way, way back. But then relatively quickly after that, I decided, no, I really wanted to work with people, not animals. So I became a teacher and then eventually became a behavior consultant. And then lo and behold, ended up getting married in my 30s to a guy who was a really good friend. And we were great friends and we were very much in love. But things really changed after the marriage. It never got bad. It wasn't one of those horrible relationships where there was abuse or anything like that. But we should have just stayed really good friends. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So I went through a divorce in my 30s when I was also doing my master's degree and becoming a credentialed family and divorce mediator. So a convolution of events there. And then shortly after that, the divorce really became a really ugly situation. I'm not going to go into a lot of details because they're irrelevant, but it was not what I expected. We didn't have kids. It should have been a nice, easy process. It was really just division of assets. But emotions got involved and bad decisions were made on both sides. And the result was a really horrific experience of something that should have been so simple and so cheap. And even 30, 25 years ago, it cost a lot of money. And I walked away thinking, there's got to be a better way to deal with this. And as a divorce and family mediator, that's one thing I've worked on for the past almost 30 years. And I've probably helped several thousand couples go through a divorce in that period of time, or at least the settlement of their assets and their co-parenting plan. But I didn't really feel like I was able to help people as much as I could, because as a mediator, you are a neutral in the room. So you can't give advice, you're not there to coach. So I became a ICF and BCC leadership and executive coach, worked a lot on emotional intelligence and conflict resolution with C-suite professionals. And I found so many of them were struggling and also having problems in their relationships and going through divorces. Once people found out I was a divorce mediator, which you can do by just Googling anybody and finding out what they do, I found that I was spending a lot of my time, in technical terms, coaching clients on executive and leadership, but it was really relationship and communication and conflict resolution skills. So I got my divorce coaching certification, and that's where I've been ever since. And I just love it. That is probably 90% of my practice now.
And are you finding now that, as opposed to just mediating and sitting on this neutral stance, that your ability to get in and lead people from the early stage, or I guess they could probably come to you at any stage in the process, but really helps facilitate a quicker, more amicable, and probably like a more grounded, calm response and outcome than not having a coach? It's different than a lawyer, right? Like those are two very different types of alignments.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing that out, Christina, because it is very different. A divorce coach, even if they are a lawyer, and there are a lot of lawyers that have become divorce coaches because they didn't find the adversarial nature of family court system was in their wheelhouse or it aligned with their values. No matter what role you're doing, you have to stick into that role. So for example, as a divorce coach, I call myself a concierge for my clients. If they need some help with whatever their lawyer tells them to do, I can ask them the questions and step them through some of the basic stuff. Or if they're really struggling with financials, I may suggest they work with a CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. So an attorney is really there to represent you in the law. I see the divorce coach as the case manager and the day-to-day support person. And then, all the other professionals fit in their specialized areas. But definitely working with people over a period of time really helps, because I can work with them to really see not just how do they want the divorce to end up, but how do they want to be positioned so that they can move into the life that they want to lead. And so many people going through divorce, and I get it, I've been there, but you're just tunnel vision. Just let me get through the divorce.
Trying to survive. You're just trying to survive.
Yes. But then if you're not thinking 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, the decisions you're making, whether it's at the mediation table or whether it's a litigated proposal that goes through the court system, if you don't know where you want to go, how do you know what to ask for here today? And unfortunately, once you make a decision in a mediation and you sign on the bottom line and your divorce is finalized through the courts, you can't go back and have a do-over if you think, oh, wow, I really wished I'd have gone for the retirement plan instead of the home. That's not an option unless your partner is very generous and agrees to do that. But so you've got to know what decisions you need to make, and you got to think through your options.
And of course, you're in a state of mind where you don't know what you don't know. You're dysregulated. You feel like you're on your heels. You're also, in my experience with a lot of friends, you're desperate to just, you're so drained, you're desperate to be done. And so you're like at the perfect crossroads of making poor decisions.
Yes.
Yeah. So a coach would just seem, I know it's been around, but I don't find that a lot of women or men, but both sides, are even knowing that it's even an opportunity to be coached, that this is something you can be coached on. Makes perfect sense. It's like almost preventative as opposed to treatment, right? It's like during and while it's all going on, which could really help. You just don't even know the questions to ask, or are you really even thinking or have the mind space to think about where you want to be in 5 years? So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you encourage your clients to reframe divorce from loss to growth? Like, how do you help them make that shift?
I think everybody's in a different space when they come to divorce, right? So some people they've talked to their partner, the partner agrees. So it's what they call an amicable divorce, which is the gold standard of divorces, right? If you want to keep the emotional and the financial costs low. Unfortunately, even with the best intentions that this is going to be an amicable divorce, things can come up. All of our lives, every decision we make around the divorce is going to be tied not just to money or not just to our children, but to emotions, and especially money and kids. Those are the two big ones.
Yep.
And if your spouse dies, the first thing to tell you is don't make any big decisions within a year. Divorce, they throw all that out the window and say, this is the second most stressful event that you're going to go through in your life, besides the death of a spouse. And now make every decision about every aspect of your life in 2 hours in a mediation session. And it's crazy making is what it is. Really being able to take a look at, you're not losing your life. You are making a life transition. And yes, that means letting go, losing, putting behind you maybe some of those dreams and goals and aspirations you had to do with your partner. But there's nothing in the world that says you can't now do those as a single person, or that you're not going to find a wonderful new partner at some point in time in life. And then you can recreate some of those goals if they're still even goals for you. So it's that sense of, this is not a loss and this is not a start over. This is a rising up from where you already are in your life and taking all those life lessons and experiences and using them to better yourself moving forward.
It's so powerful. It's so within our control and within our reach. It is, but it's definitely something that one could use some coaching through when you're in such a dark time of confusion and oftentimes disbelief and betrayal. Again, it is all those emotional triggers that can get you out of your front of your brain and back into your amygdala and stay in this fight or flight response.
Because we hear all these horror divorce stories where people are
more so than not.
Because you don't hear of the good ones. The good ones just happen and they don't tend to get all this attention. Yeah. And another thing I think that happens a lot of times is people anticipate that because a friend had a really bad divorce, that's what my divorce is going to look like. And they become way too aggressive, way too fast in the process. And once one partner becomes aggressive, the other partner has the natural tendency is to become aggressive as well. And the whole thing just cycles up, when in fact, if you're doing it well, it should cycle down with the level of conflict.
Continually meeting potentially frustration and obstinance with a more grounded approach. And hopefully everybody will continue to come down that downward spiral. Yeah, that was my next thing. I'm like, how do you reduce that anger and frustration? I like that one of the things that you offer on your website is just like a clarity call. So I feel in my experience that there's a lot of women who have been thinking about divorce for a long time. Men, it takes two to tango. So it could be on both sides. Most likely it is. Usually those things are happening in both of people's brains and they're just not communicating about it. Being honest, it's hard to be honest about those things that you feel like are really going to hurt somebody and unravel what is potentially you've already raveled up. So I like that you have a clarity call for people who are curious if it is the right move, so that they can untangle some of their emotions, potentially some ego, right? Some of the things that they've attached to why they want to stay married versus what is really healthier and better and beneficial. And then have somebody guide them through what could that look like. Do you find that is where a lot of your clients come into you? Is that the stage, or is
that's where I would love to have them?
Right.
And I have to say, when I do get clients that come in at that stage, and Christina, up until last year, I worked exclusively with women. And then I found I was getting calls from men, even though my website is Divorce Coach for Women. I was getting calls from men, and they were saying, look, we've listened to your podcast. We really want to work with you. So I thought, yeah, why not? So I started working with men as well. But I will let you know, in the United States, and I'm going to say North America, because Canada has very similar statistics, 70% of divorces are filed by the woman.
Interesting.
And if you look at women with a college education or above, that number goes up to almost 90%. And the biggest growing group of people going through divorce who are filing for divorce are what they call now the gray divorce. So people in my age group, 50 up. And that's the biggest group of women now that are filing for divorce. And I think, unfortunately, to get way back to your question, I got a little off track there, that most people don't think they need a divorce coach until they are, and this is sad, but I'm going to say it, $50,000 to $100,000 in legal fees into the divorce.
Yeah.
They've been a year or two in the process trying to work with the lawyers to get things sorted out. And they are beyond frustrated with everything, including their attorney. And they're just like, why is nothing moving forward? And again, it's because people get entrenched in that anger and resentment and revenge cycle. And then it just, like I said, it just ratchets up. And the more anger there is in the divorce, the more money it's going to cost you. That's the simplest way. And I find most people start reaching for a divorce coach when those legal bills start reaching the point where they're like, this is crazy. I'm spending my child's inheritance on this divorce.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And how quickly that can happen.
It does. Yes.
Yeah. It seems, of course, it seems completely intuitive to start early, but oftentimes, like, we don't know what we don't know. And so we imagine that the person you're married to is going to be reasonable, because even though the marriage hasn't worked, and you guys have decided it's not working, and you imagine you're going to extricate yourself in a very amicable or reasonable way, yeah, things turn sideways really quickly.
And that's one of the questions I do. One of the things I do ask people is, think of a time when there was a big decision you had to make as a couple. How did your partner handle that? And how did you handle that? And was that a stressful thing that you had to go through? Because if something like, I don't know, having to move, or should we change jobs, or somebody gets a promotion and there's the opportunity to move and the other partner doesn't want to, how those kind of decisions have been handled can be a blueprint to how the divorce is going to be handled. So if it was a lot of passive aggressive behavior, if it was a lot of just not making the decision and waiting to see what would happen, that's going to be a problem when you're going through a divorce. Quite often, not always, but it's a pretty good indicator, right? The past is an indicator of what's going to happen in the present.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I would imagine that a lot of people aren't sitting in that space long enough to honestly reflect of, what could I really anticipate from this? Or if they do know deep down and they don't. I have a friend who, like, that is why it took her so long to leave. I had a sneaking suspicion that this was going to be really hard. And so there is some avoidance there, and it would be more than beneficial and helpful to have somebody in your corner coaching you through that. Which brings me to my next little bit that I'd like to talk about around mindset shifts. So from scarcity to abundance, victim to victor, and adversarial to collaborative. How do you walk your clients through those types of mindset shifts? Excuse me.
I think the first thing, and I'm sure, because I know you do a lot of work with mindsets with your people and your clients, and I'm guessing we use a similar approach. The first thing is you have to acknowledge what your thought pattern is around the issue. So I'm going to use the scarcity and abundance one, if you don't mind, just as an illustration. When most people think about scarcity and abundance, the first thing they think about is money. And I get that, because that's the words that we're associated with. And there's an emotional element to money. There are some people I work with who have huge estates. I have the privilege of working with some very wealthy, well-known clients. So they may be We may be looking at $100 million estate, and everybody is grabbing for for a $10 bill that's left on the floor, and they're fighting over these amounts of money when there is more than enough money for everybody to be happy. But in their minds, there's never enough. There's that fear. And I don't know where that came from. And as a coach, I'm not a therapist. So to me, it doesn't really matter where it came from. It matters that you acknowledge it. And then what do you need to have in place to help you see that you really have an abundance? So maybe it's going to a certified divorce financial analyst who can lay out all these different plans and data points and dollar signs and let you clearly understand, because I do believe knowledge is power in making mindset shifts.
Yep.
But there's also, I think that one that comes up is that scarcity of love. We may feel that we are with our soulmate, and I'm not trying to offend anybody. I know some people really believe there's only one person on earth for them. And if you believe that, then I can understand why a divorce would be so incredibly difficult. But scarcity of love is something a lot of people have a fear of. I'm going to be all by myself. Who cares about me? Who's going to be there to love me? Who am I going to take care of? How am I going to build this relationship? So first of all, the first person we need to love is ourselves. So once we can love ourselves, we can get out of bad relationships because we realize the damage we're doing to ourselves and maybe even to our children if we stay in them. And then once we are able to accept that, we can open up. I really believe that put the right energy out into the universe, it's going to come back to you. And so once you love yourself, then you can open up and be able to start bringing people into your world that are going to have align with your values and your goals and your dreams and your desires. And from that group of people, there potentially could be that new ideal partner. So that's
all things are possible once you really truly love yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is a process. It's not just saying it. It's really believing it, knowing it, as they say, right? Give out what you want to get.
And taking the actionable steps, I think, is really important. I'm all for affirmations and stuff. I think they're fantastic. I encourage my clients to do that. But I also encourage my clients to do a gratitude journal because, again, and at least one of those things that you're grateful for, I ask my clients to make it something specific about them. I'm grateful for my body working today and allowing me to go for a workout, or I'm grateful for whatever it may be. I'm grateful for having a friend tell me what a beautiful smile I have. Starting to really love ourselves when we go through a life-changing event is, I think, the critical one for any kind of mind shift all the way down the line.
Yeah, I agree. It's very powerful. And I feel like that's where it all lays. Like that's your real resourced self. And if you can tap into that, really, all things are possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the power of mindset.
It is. It's so powerful. It's true. This has been lovely. Thank you so much. I feel like we uncovered and touched on a lot of different wonderful nuggets. Again, I would encourage everybody to follow you and go on and look at your podcast. And of course, reach out sooner than later, even if they're just thinking about the possibility and want to just walk through with somebody who's seasoned and who's seen a lot, and will give some unbiased advice regarding which way to step. I think that could be really valuable and could probably head off a lot more heartache than invite.
Thank you, Christina. I've so enjoyed talking to you and sharing this. And I just want to say, even though I'm a divorce coach, I am so pro couples staying together if there's any way for that to happen. A lot of times I end up on those consultation calls referring a client to somebody I know who is a relationship coach or a communication skills expert. Definitely.
So great about our network. That's what's so great about our network, is that it's all a win-win. So wherever you are, we're all here to navigate this transition together, whether it is staying together and creating a whole new relationship, or parting ways and creating a whole new life. There's opportunity on both ends.
That's a great way to summarize that. I love it.
Great. It was wonderful connecting with you, and I look forward to connecting more in the future.
Thank you, Christina. Me too.
Party.